She locked the door. My own house, and I stood outside, in the rain, like some stray dog she was done feeding. I knocked once. Not hard, just enough to give her a way out. You wanna believe what I did next? Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The porch light flickered above me, like it was mocking my age. I could hear music inside, muffled laughter, clinking glasses, that upbeat song she always played when her influencer friends came over. I wiped my face, though I wasn't sure if it was rain or something else running down my cheek. She had told the driver to drop the old man at the gate. That's what she said, word for word. And the driver, he obeyed. The car didn't even slow down as it rolled back toward the garage. I was left standing there in my own damn driveway, soaking wet, watching the woman I married throw her head back in laughter. I never forgot that sound. It wasn't set joy. It was victory. But that was just the night she showed me who she really was. Let me take you back. 2 months earlier, things were already shifting. Vanessa had started dressing differently, hosting more wellness events. Friends I didn't know would show up, call me sweet, pat my back like I was some mascot in a museum. I told myself, it was just a phase. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe this is what a second marriage looked like at 67. But then came the dinner party. She wore that red silk dress, the one I bought her from Milan. She didn't look at me once during the car ride, just typed away on her phone, laughing softly like I wasn't even in the seat beside her. At the table, she introduced me as Tom, my retired architect husband. He sits, learning to enjoy life again. Bless him. Bless him. As if I was someone recovering from a stroke, not the man who built the very house her friends were now drinking in. I didn't say anything. Not then. But when I saw her lean into that younger man, tall, fake smiling, too comfortable, I leaned in too. I whispered, "Vanessa, you said you're being inappropriate." She froze. The entire table went quiet for a second. Then she laughed. Loud. Louder than she needed to. "Tom thinks I sit in being inappropriate," she announced. "Maybe you should go outside and cool off, sweetheart." Everyone laughed with her. And I did, as she said. I stood up, grabbed my coat, and walked outside. The rain had just started. I stood under the porch for 15 minutes. No one came. No one checked. I turned to head back in, just in time to hear the door click. Locked. I knocked once. Then again. No answer. The music inside was louder now. Deliberately louder. I pulled out my phone. Battery dead. I remembered Vanessa saying, "You never charge your phone, Tom. What if you get lost?" Now I knew she had charged hers just fine. I walked down the driveway slowly, each step echoing with something deeper than rain. I reached the gate, stood under the old oak tree and waited. I thought maybe one of the guests would come out. Maybe Vanessa would cool off. Maybe the driver would return. He did. But not for me. The black SUV came back up the drive, stopped for 2 seconds, just enough for me to make eye contact through the tinted window, and then drove past me like I didn't exist. I shall never forget that moment. Not because of the rain, but because I realized then I wasn't her husband anymore. I was her storyline. The tired old man, who made her look younger by contrast. I stood there for what must have been an hour. And when I finally started walking, my back ached with every step. I was soaked, cold, but more than anything, I felt erased. When I got home, my real home, the one she never cared to visit, the silence felt like medicine. I looked in the mirror. And I didn't see a man in pain. I saw a man who had just been told the truth. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger would have made her the center of this. And she didn't deserve that. No. I decided something else. Something colder. Something quiet. I would let her keep thinking she won. Because the most painful defeat is the one you don't see coming. And she didn't see a thing. I still remember the day she called me a breath of peace. It was raining then too. Funny, isn't it? Back then, her voice didn't cut me. It wrapped around my ribs like warmth I hadn't felt in years. Vanessa was different from the beginning. I had just turned 60 when we met. Widowed, quiet, fading into the edges of rooms. She wasn't still loud, but she knew how to be seen. She told me my hands were safe. That no one had ever looked at blueprints the way I did. I thought it was admiration. But now, I wonder how much of it was calculation. We met at a design panel I had no interest in attending. She was giving a talk on modern minimalism in luxury homes. I'd never heard anyone use the word soulful to describe a fireplace before. After the event, she asked me to coffee. Not wine, not dinner. Coffee. It felt harmless. I told myself I was just being polite. But I wore my favorite blazer anyway. The first time I brought her to my house, she didn't compliment the furniture. She walked straight to the back patio and said, "You should put a koi pond here. Stillness looks good on you." I laughed. She smiled. And somehow, without touching anything, she began rearranging my life. The first year was quiet. She cooked. She stayed in. She rubbed my shoulder when the arthritis kicked in and told me not to be proud. "I know men like you," she said to whisper. "You think you're supposed to die with dignity. I once said to let you." She said things that felt like love, and I needed to believe it was. So when she suggested merging our bank accounts to simplify things, I said yes. When she offered to help with estate planning, I agreed. She even joked that I was the last man on earth still using checks. I gave her access to everything. Every time I signed something, she kissed the top of my hand. It became our ritual. I thought it was romance. Now I see it as conditioning. She started talking about our money, our house, our future. I didn't correct her. Because when you're older and someone sees a future with you, you don't argue about pronouns. You just feel lucky. The first real red flag came wrapped in silk. It was a robe. Dark green. Velvet, imported. She handed it to me and said, "A man like you should look like money even in his sleep." I laughed. But I noticed the tag. It was from a boutique I didn't recognize. When I asked how much it cost, she waved me off. "You worked your whole life. Let yourself be taken care of." I nodded. But I checked the bank account later that night. That was the first time. The first time I noticed a charge that hadn't come from me. But I convinced myself it didn't matter. She was my wife. She was entitled. Wasn't she? Still, I made a mental note. I started saving the monthly statements as PDFs. No reason. Just instinct. And yet, when she suggested transferring the house into both our names, I didn't hesitate. "I don't want to feel like a guest here," she said softly. "You said or not," I replied. "Then let it be ours." So I signed the deed. The house I built from the ground up. The house my first wife had picked tiles for. The house where my children learned to ride their bikes on the driveway. Now legally half hers. I didn't realize how far it had gone until my lawyer called. "Are you sure about the new beneficiaries?" "What new beneficiaries?" I asked. He hesitated. That hesitation is still lodged in my chest like a splinter. He told me he'd received updated paperwork, digitally signed, redirecting part of the trust toward Vanessa's wellness brand. I never signed that. At least, I didn't think I had. But then I remembered. She once handed me an iPad during brunch. Said it was just a minor update for some health directive thing. I signed with my finger. Didn't even read the header. She had smiled, kissed my cheek. And I moved on. I didn't confront her right away. Something in me needed more. Not proof. Closure. So I started watching. I noticed she never left her phone unattended. She had 2 email accounts. One personal, one brand-focused. She said she was working on a new line of home scents, but when I passed her office one night, I saw her deleting messages. Rapidly. Nervously. She didn't see me. But I saw everything. I went to Eli the next day, my old driver who had quietly stayed on retainer even after I retired him. Set always been more than just a driver. He was a mirror. He saw what I didn't want to see. I said, Ellie, I need to know if I stem being used. He didn't blink. He just said, do you want the truth, or do you want comfort? Truth, I said. He took out his phone, opened a folder, and showed me things I didn't know he'd been saving. Photos. Vanessa meeting with a younger man at a hotel. Receipts. Bank screenshots. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I asked, my voice dry. Because love makes men deaf, he said. And I was waiting for you to hear it on your own. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat in the back seat of his car staring at my own name on an account that was bleeding quietly. Vanessa had a plan. And I had given her all the tools. She never had to break in. I opened every door. And I didn't realize how deep her claws had sunk, until it was almost too late. Eli didn't knock, he never did. He just stood there. Hat in hand, rain dripping from his coat, eyes steady like the day I first hired him 22 years ago. You're not the kind of man who should be alone, he said. I hadn't seen him in nearly 5 months. Vanessa made sure of that. It started with small things. She complained about his music choices in the car. Then his tone. Then his energy. She said he made her feel uncomfortable. That was her word, uncomfortable. I knew what she meant. But I pretended I didn't because pretending kept the peace. Then came the charity gala. I was sick that night. Couldn't attend. Vanessa insisted on going anyway. Eli was assigned to drive her. She came back fuming. Claimed Eli had looked at her funny. Said he spoke out of turn. Said he couldn't tip his eyes where they belonged. I asked him directly. His voice didn't shake. She asked me to wait outside in the rain, he said. It was freezing. I rolled down the window to ask if I could at least sit inside the lobby. He paused. She told me to remember I was the help. I didn't respond right away. I just lowered my eyes. Because in that moment, I didn't know who to be loyal to. So Eli quit. Quietly. Without drama. He shook my hand at the door. Said, some storms you don't block, sir. You just wait for them to pass. I didn't stop him. And I hated myself for that. But now, standing in front of me, soaked and uninvited, he gave me back something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. I heard, he said. I saw the video. He meant the clip that was circulating in our neighborhood group chat. Vanessa laughing at me. Vanessa locking the door. Vanessa driving off. Someone had filmed it from the sidewalk. I never knew who. But Eli had seen it. And that's why he came back. I don't want pay, he said. I want purpose. I nodded once. Didn't trust myself to speak. He followed me inside. Hung up his coat. Went straight to the kitchen and made tea like he'd never left. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was heavy with understanding. You knew, I finally said. Eli looked at me over his cup. Not everything, he replied. But enough. I rubbed my temples. The headache hadn't left me since that night. I feel like I was asleep for 3 years, I whispered. You weren't he said. You were just kind. It landed like a punch. Because deep down I had known. But I wanted to be wrong. I told him everything. From the bank accounts to the lie about the health directive. I showed him the PDFs. The charges. The pattern. He listened. Didn't flinch. She good at this, he finally said. She done it before. I bet my life on it. I leaned back. The chair creaked beneath me. I hadn't slept properly in days. Ely placed a small notebook on the table. Worn leather cover, thin pages. Receipts, photos, dates. She meets someone every second Tuesday, he said. Downtown, same hotel, different name. I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't need to. That's when we started collecting receipts. Not just emotional ones, but the real kind. I created a folder on an encrypted drive. Labeled it Window. Because that says what this was. A window into the truth. Ely handled the surveillance. I handled the legal end. Every night we met at 9 p.m. My office. 2 chairs. No music. No small talk. We documented everything. Dates. Transactions. Conversations. Every time she said I love you after an ATM withdrawal. Every new business meeting that lasted 3 hours. It became routine. Painful but necessary. Then one day Ely looked up from his notes and said, "You planning to confront her?" I shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "I want her to think she sits still winning." He nodded slowly. "Smart," he said. "Cruel. But smart." I didn't recognize myself anymore. But I didn't miss the man I used to be either. That man would have forgiven her. This one was building something colder. We found out she'd opened a new account in her maiden name. She was funneling money there. Small amounts. Strategic. Over months. I printed the statements. Put them in a yellow envelope. Wrote the word farewell across the top. Healy smiled when he saw it. "Planning something?" he asked. "Not yet," I replied. "But soon." Some nights I caught myself staring at the fireplace. The one she said made the house feel too old. She wanted to rip it out. Replace it with some concrete wall. Modern, clean, untouchable, she said. And now, sitting by it with Ely across from me, sipping tea, I realized she had always wanted to erase what came before her. But she had failed. Because what came before her was still here. Breathing, thinking, watching. She underestimated the man behind the architecture. One night, Ely showed me a video. She was at the same hotel. With the same man. They were laughing. Drinking. Kissing in the elevator. I felt something cold press against my ribs. Not jealousy. Something sharper. Freedom. "She doesn't know we know," Ely said quietly. "No," I said. "She thinks we stir still in the rain." And I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I had finally stepped out of the storm. She thought I was blind. Not just emotionally, but financially. What Vanessa didn't know was, I never gave up control. Not fully. Not where it counted. She had access to the lifestyle. Sure. The car, the wine club subscriptions, the silk pillows, the absurd spa retreats she called healing escapes. But the assets, the core accounts, the foundations I built over 40 years, those were still under my name. I kept them quiet. I didn't advertise the difference. Letting her feel powerful was part of the plan. Because people like Vanessa get careless when they think they've already won. After Ely came back, I started digging. Not wildly. Not like a man in panic. Like a man searching through his own blueprints, checking for cracks no one else could see. I opened the business account statements first. The ones attached to the real estate trusts. No anomalies. Then the mid-tier account, the one I gave her viewing access to. She never noticed it wasn't set a joint, just labeled shared. She never asked questions. That sits where the bleeding was happening. Little drops at first. $700 here, $1,250 there. The descriptions were vague. Consulting, brand support, social activation. But when I traced the recipient account names, patterns began to surface. The first flag was her brother. Unemployed. Living 3 states away. And somehow receiving $2,000 monthly from a lifestyle strategy contract. She had told me once casually over lunch. He sips rebuilding his life. Getting sober. I want to support that. I agreed. What she didn't say was that she'd put him on a fake payroll. I made a note. One line. Red pen, capital letters, $2,000 to Liam. But that wasn't set to the worst. Not by far. The next transfer led to a small LLC. I almost skipped it. It sounded like a health product distributor. But I searched the address. A shared office space downtown. Eli pulled up to that building the next morning. He called me from the parking lot. "Boss," he said. "It's empty. Looks like a mailbox drop." Another layer. I checked the filings. Guess who registered it? Vanessa. Using her maiden name. 3 months after we married. I sat there in the dark, screen glowing, hand gripping the edge of the desk. She had a second identity. A second business. A second life. And I had paid for all of it. One transfer stood out. It was only $400. But it was marked JW Hotel Wellness Retreat. The date rang a bell. I opened my calendar. Scrolled back. She told me she was at a spa. Said she needed deep tissue cleansing. Said they didn't allow phones. I remember because I'd sent her a text that weekend. "Miss you." No reply. Now I knew why. I looked up the hotel. Eli checked the parking log. He had a contact inside. Tipped the valet $50. Her name wasn't sipped on the room. But the credit card matched the payment ID. Room 407, 2 nights. King Suite. Think she was alone? Eli asked. He already knew the answer. I closed the file. Did Net respond? Because that wasn't the end. There were emails too. Buried deep. Auto-forwarded to a hidden inbox. I found one titled Exit Strategy. Sent from a woman named Tara, someone she met at a branding conference. The email read, "Once the funding flows for 3 more months, pull the plug, shut down the LLC, move to the joint account and walk." That's what I did with my second husband. No one suspects until it sips over. No one suspects until it sits over. My stomach clenched. I didn't get up from the chair. Didn't pace. Didn't cry. I just copied the email. Printed it. Filed it in the yellow envelope I now kept labeled when it sets time. That night I sat across from Vanessa at dinner. She poured wine. Laughed about a meme. Wore a silk robe with my initials embroidered on the sleeve. "Long day?" she asked. "Productive," I replied. I didn't blink. That was the first time I felt truly in control. Because power isn't set in volume. It sits in silence. Cold, deliberate silence. The next day, I installed screen recording software. Linked it to her laptop, just enough to capture files. I found an invoice template with preset names. One of them? A therapist she'd never seen. Another. A creative consultant named Milo. There was no Milo. But the address listed next to his name. It matched the hotel. I paused. Something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not grief. Clarity. I started collecting. Every invoice. Every receipt. Every piece of paper with her signature. I wanted her to feel untouchable. Until the moment she wasn't set. Because if I learned anything from architecture, it's this. The most stable structures collapse from within. Silently. Then all at once. I brought Eli into the room that week. "We start close," I said. He nodded. "Need backup?" he asked. "I need precision," I said. "No mistakes." He smiled. "Let's finish it then." We printed copies. Made 3 binders. One stayed with me. One went to the lawyer. The third was locked in a safe she didn't know existed. I left clues. Subtle ones. Let her think I was getting forgetful. Misplacing bills. Asking about passwords I supposedly already knew. She laughed at me one night. Called me old and sweet. I smiled back. She never noticed the yellow envelope behind the wine rack. The evidence was there. Pages marked. Tabs color-coded. Bank transfers. Fake accounts. The hotel. One of those hotels was booked the same night she said she was at the spa. And that's when I knew. The storm wasn't coming. It had already arrived. She just didn't know it was hers. She thought he was her ace. That lawyer from her college years, the one she always name-dropped like he was family. I trust Daniel more than anyone, she'd say with that smug little smile. He helped my friend freeze her ex's accounts in a day. I nod. Let her feel brilliant. Let her believe she built her own safety net. But the truth, Daniel wasn't hers. He was mine. We met long before Vanessa knew what a trust was. Back when I was building duplexes and fighting zoning boards, he was fresh out of law school, nervous and grateful. I gave him his first big case. He never forgot that. So when Vanessa reconnected with him at a wine tasting and started parading him around like her private legal weapon, I smiled politely. Inside, I was already rewriting everything. I scheduled the meeting with Daniel 3 weeks after that party. She was at a yoga retreat. Said she needed to reset her nervous system. I used that weekend to reset my legacy. We met in a corner booth of a quiet cafe. No suits, no paper, just 2 old professionals sipping black coffee and talking like men do when there's no time left for lies. I need the will rewritten, I said. Privately, quietly, and in full. He didn't ask why. Didn't need to. Daniel knew me. And more importantly, he knew the signs. Same executor, he asked. No, I replied. We remove her, completely. He raised his eyebrow. I nodded. I want a living trust, I continued, irrevocable, and structured so that not even a good liar can find a way in. He slid his coffee aside. You want full insulation. I want peace. That was a year before she left me in the rain. Long before I found the spa receipt. Before I saw her real face. But even then, I'd already started preparing for war. The new documents took 6 weeks to finalize. We dissolved the old joint holdings, moved my assets into a layered trust. Daniel had 3 dummy corporations on standby. 1 for the house, 1 for the rental properties, 1 for my pension rollover. Vanessa had no idea. She still checked the shared account every morning like she was managing an empire. Meanwhile, the real money sat untouched, invisible, legally shielded. And the will? That was the masterpiece. No spouse clause. No survivorship assumption. Every mention of my wife was stripped out like infection from a wound. Daniel inserted 1 single paragraph in its place. In the event of my death, I declare that Vanessa ______________ shall not, under any circumstance, inherit, manage, or influence any aspect of my estate. This is a deliberate and final decision. I signed it. Not with rage, but with resolve. I remember my hand didn't even tremble. The pen glided. Like the paper had been waiting for this moment. Daniel looked at me afterward. You sure about this? More than I been about anything in years. He slid the file across the table, stamped it with his seal. You know, he said, she asked me last month about estate loopholes. I didn't flinch. What you tell her? That I said look into it. We both smiled. And then we shook hands. From that point on, she had no clue she was legally powerless. Still thought her charm was working. Still thought Daniel was in her corner. I let her keep thinking that. Because a chess game is won long before the final move. Every time she threw his name around, it made me stronger. It meant she still believed in a fantasy. I just call Daniel, she say. He still sorted out. I asked Daniel to update the tax clause. Each time I nodded. Each time, She dug herself deeper. Then came the moment that proved it all. We were having dinner. Quiet night. Chicken. Wine. Soft jazz humming from the kitchen speaker. She brought up divorce. Casually. Like she was asking about the weather. Hypothetically, she said, if we ever separated, I said still be protected, right? I looked up from my plate. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't blinking. She was testing the waters. I took a slow sip of wine. Set the glass down carefully. You said to have Daniel wouldn't sit you, I said. She laughed. I mean, yeah, he sets family. I leaned in. Lowered my voice just enough. Be careful with family. They remember everything. She blinked. Just once. Then looked down. Changed the subject. But I saw it. The flicker. The doubt. It had begun. 2 weeks later she called Daniel. I knew because he told me. She asked him for a quiet consultation. Said she had concerns. Wanted to make sure her name was secure on the house. He didn't deny her. He booked the meeting. Listened. Then he called me. Word for word, he repeated her plan. How she wanted to remove me from certain titles. How she planned to clean up the paperwork. I didn't react. Just said, thank you. He said one more thing. She's good at this. So are we, I replied. And I meant it. Because by then, I had every document aligned. Every key removed from her reach. Every account rerouted. She was standing in a house she didn't own, spending money she didn't control, and planning a future she didn't realize was dissolving beneath her feet. All that was left was to watch her burn her own bridge. The entire story must be written from the protagonist's perspective in first person CS Scud. I, me, my format. Do not use third-person narration at any point. The reader should experience the protagonist's thoughts, emotions, and reactions directly. And Len important. Prioritize realism plus emotional layering based on audience psychology. This story is meant for an older, emotionally sensitive audience, ages 40-65, especially those who've experienced betrayal by close family. The tone should feel like a quiet confession or a private memory being unpacked, not theatrical. Painful silences, realistic emotional restraint, and moral reflection should guide every chapter. Insert mini cliffhangers every 3-5 paragraphs during reflective narration. These should be short, suspense-building sentences that make the reader want to continue, for example. But that wasn't the worst thing she did. Or I didn't know then that my life was about to be destroyed in the next 10 minutes. Narrative balance, based on viral story analysis. Narration, 55-60%. For internal monologue, layered betrayal reflections, courtroom control, flashbacks, and emotional contrast. Dialogue, 35%. Cold replies. Emotional confrontations, hidden meanings. Keep it slow-paced, natural, not theatrical. Description, 10-15%. Only when needed to symbolize emotion or enhance realism, for example, eyes, paper, furniture, clothing. Tune and structure adjustments based on competitor insight. Begin each chapter with a strong emotional shock or silent reveal. Never start soft. Use fast pacing in plot movement, but keep emotional moments slow, real, and grounded. Avoid forced melodrama. Your audience connects to subtle emotional explosions, not dramatic breakdowns. Every scene should serve a clear transformation, betrayal reveal or karmic reversal. 1. Output format. First person, emotionally layered, exact word count per chapter. Input. Chapter 6. The birthday party that wasn't set about me. Word count, 900. Tone. Emotional trigger vertical bar public humiliation. Summary. Vanessa throws a big party in his house, inviting people who barely knew him. She gives a speech calling him a stubborn, proud relic, who refuses to adjust to modern ways. That night Thomas watches as guests laugh at his expense, and Vanessa dances with a man 20 years younger. Eli records it all. Thomas doesn't react. he just smiles. Mini cliffhanger. Because I knew, tomorrow morning, everything would change. Output. Full chapter in first-person POV. Match exact word count assigned in the outline. Each chapter must follow its assigned word count from the outline. Use realistic dialogue, natural speech, avoid over-explaining, let pain reveal itself through pauses, silence, and word choices. Avoid info dumping, backstory, character arcs, and family history must unfold gradually through narration and subtle dialogue. Ensure each line progresses the story. No filler or repeated thoughts. And don't give the output in markdown form. Give me the script direct in chat. And keep in mind, don't add extra spaces in script. Give me raw script which I copy and paste into voiceover software. I don't need to cut extra spaces myself. Her scream came through the wall at 11:43 a.m. sharp. I had just taken the first sip of my second coffee. Not the kind of scream you hear in movies, no crashing plates or operatic flair. Just sharp, frustrated, real. I didn't set flinch. I had been waiting for it. She was supposed to be at her boutique by noon. Every Thursday. Like clockwork. New arrivals. A few staged photos for her page. Lunch with that shallow friend of hers who said words like manifest and high frequency. She sets to always leave the garage at exactly 11:40, but this morning, the door didn't set open. Because I had changed the code. Twice. She tried the remote. Then the panel. Then the spare panel I ditched told her we needed for safety. Nothing. Then came the scream. And I knew we were finally where we needed to be. The night before I had prepared everything. Every lock recoded. Every access stripped. Passwords changed. Banking pins refreshed. Eli had driven the backup vehicle to storage. She was trapped. Not physically. Financially. Emotionally. Narratively. She stormed into the kitchen, barefoot, out of breath, holding her phone like it owed her an apology. Did you change the garage code? I didn't look up from the paper. Yeah, I said calmly. She blinked like she didn't hear me. You what? I folded the paper, set it down beside my cup, then looked at her dead in the eyes. I said I changed it. Why? She snapped. I said spum late. I know. She stared at me, trying to find something in my expression. Anger. Guilt. Explanation. I gave her none. My card didn't work this morning either, she added, voice climbing. It was declined. Twice. Also I'm aware. That sits when she paused. Half a step backward. Small, but noticeable. What did you do? She asked. Corrected a mistake. I said. Several, actually. She laughed. But not from humor. From disbelief. You froze the accounts? No. I moved them. To where? Where they belong. She stood there, still in her robe. The same one I bought her from Florence, embroidered with her initials like royalty. Now she just looked like a squatter in silk. You can do this, she said. You can just. I didn't do anything without legal process. Her eyes narrowed. Daniel will fix this. I smiled. No, he won sit. And that sits when I saw it. The shift. That flicker in her pupils. She didn't know what I meant. And that terrified her. She turned. Marched down the hall. Slammed doors. Yanked drawers. Looking for what? An old contract? A checkbook? A weapon? She found none. Then the doorbell rang. Exactly on time. She opened it, thinking maybe it was a courier. Instead, it was a process server. Manila envelope, court-sealed. She looked at me again while signing for it. I stayed seated. She ripped it open like it was junk mail. Then froze. The words hit her harder than I ever could. Trust activation. Asset reassignment. Occupant removal. Notice period, 0. This isn't set illegal, she whispered. This isn't set illegal. It is, I replied. Daniel handled it. A year ago. She looked at me like I'd spoken another language. You knew back then? I didn't at stat answer. Because some answers don't need to be spoken. They just need to be lived. She dropped the envelope on the floor like it burned. Ran to the kitchen. Grabbed her phone. Started dialing. Bank. Friend. Mother. Lawyer. Each one gave her the same answer. No access. No power. No authority. She turned back to me, breath shallow. You tricked me. No, I said. You showed me who you were. I just finally accepted it. She looked around the room like she might still find something to hold on to. Then she ran upstairs. I heard the suitcase unzip. Closets open. Drawers slam. She was packing. Still convinced she had somewhere to go. 10 minutes later, she came stomping back down. Wheeling a red suitcase, the one she used for her retreats. She pressed the garage button again. Still nothing. Then came the second scream, only this time there was no audience. Just me and the echo of everything she'd tried to erase. She threw the suitcase down, turned to me. You suck sick. No, I said. I said, finally sane. She stood there shaking, mascara already streaked. You said'll regret this. I didn't answer. Just looked at her the same way she once looked at me through that locked front door. As if I was inconvenient. Temporary. Excess weight. Another knock at the door. Eli. Punctual, as always. I grabbed my coat, walked toward the hallway. She blocked my path. Where are you going? She demanded. To the house you never knew about. Her jaw clenched. You never said you had another house. I stopped saying a lot of things. She stepped aside. But not for me. For herself, I walked past, opened the front door. Eli gave me a nod. The car door opened. Warm leather interior. Quiet. Peaceful. Before stepping in, I turned back once. She was still standing in the doorway. Barefoot. Silent. She thought the rain was the lesson. She didn't know class had just begun. The first time I saw it, it was just 12 seconds long. Grainy. Cropped. But the voice was unmistakably hers. Vanessa stood under soft party lights, holding a wine glass and speaking into a mic she didn't deserve. If I wanted to sleep next to my grandfather every night, she laughed. I sept check into hospice, not get married. The crowd chuckled. A few people gasped. But she kept going. It's cute though. Watching him pretend to keep up with me. He still uses paper calendars. Bless his ancient soul. I paused the video. Watched it again. Then a third time. I didn't feel anger. Just clarity. I texted Eli. Use this. Cut it sharp. Post without a caption. His reply came back instantly. Already queued. By 10:13 a.m. the next day, it had 38,000 views. By noon it passed 100,000. The comments were brutal. She sounds proud of using him. This is what betrayal sounds like. He gave her his life and she made him a punchline. I didn't write a word. Didn't set share. Didn't defend. Didn't just explain. The internet did the work for me. That night, Vanessa went live. Full makeup. Studio lighting. The I'm just trying to be raw and honest setup. She started with a long sigh. Look, some of you are twisting my words. No one believed her. Because there was no twist. Only truth. She smiled weakly. I was trying to be funny. You had to be there. Context matters. Context always matters. Especially when your character depends on what people didn't see. Except now, they had seen. The clip wasn't set taken from some private moment. It was filmed during a party she hosted in my name, in my house, with my money. And she had smiled when she said it. That's what made it lethal. By morning the brands started pulling out. One by one. the skincare line, the wellness tea company, the hotel chain she'd been doing affiliate posts for. Each one issued a statement that read almost the same: "We do not condone ageist, manipulative, or disrespectful behavior in any form." Her publicist resigned that afternoon. I didn't know she even had one. Eli called me. "You want to push the second clip?" "Not yet," I said. "Let her dance in the ashes for a bit." She posted a selfie with a long caption about the dangers of cancel culture. Tried to reframe herself as the victim. But the comments didn't net bite. They bit her. "This isn't such an cancel culture. This is consequence. You mocked the man who paid your rent. You stare not being canceled. You stare being seen." Her follower count dropped by the minute. The morning yoga moms turned on her. The women who once reposted her quotes now posted reaction videos calling her a fraud. I sat back and watched, not with pleasure, with peace. She made herself viral. We just helped her stay there. A day later, she went live again. No filter this time. No ring light, just tears. "I loved him," she said. "You don't understand what it was like. He was impossible to live with, so stuck in his ways." Her voice cracked. Perfectly on cue. Too perfectly. "You weren't sit there when he refused to try. You weren't sit there when I begged him to evolve." The comments weren't sit forgiving. "He didn't sit need to evolve. You needed to grow up. Stop weaponizing your tears." Nobody believes this performance. Even her most loyal followers turned quiet. Then they turned on her. I didn't set reply. Didn't text. Didn't it even refresh. The damage was done. That evening, Eli sent me a link. An influencer gossip podcast had picked it up. Vanessa Lynn, age 44, known for her wellness routines and clean girl aesthetic, is under fire this week for making ageist comments about her husband of 10 years. The internet is demanding accountability. Brands are fleeing, and insiders say more clips are coming. I smiled at the phrase "more clips." There were more. But we hadn't needed them yet. The next morning, she came to the seaside house. I had just stepped out of the shower when I heard the knock. Soft. Hesitant. I opened the door in silence. There she was. No makeup. Wet eyes. Phone in hand. No camera crew. No performance, at least not yet. "Can I come in?" "No." She blinked like I hit her. "Tom, please. I didn't mean for any of this." "Which part?" I asked. "The speech? The lie? The dancing? Or the funeral joke?" She swallowed hard. "You don't understand. That party, it was pressure. I was drinking. They wanted a moment. And you gave them me." Her hands trembled. She looked thinner. Or maybe the truth had just made her smaller. "I've lost everything." "No," I corrected. "You lost what wasn't yours to keep." She stood there for another 10 seconds. Looking for softness. Looking for the man she could talk into forgiveness. But he was gone. I had buried him with the marriage. "I didn't think it would go this far," she whispered. "It didn't I said. "This is just far enough." I shut the door. No slam. Just finality. She knocked again. I didn't open. She texted. I didn't read. The world had given her what I couldn't a mirror. 3 days later she posted a black screen with the caption, "Taking time to reflect. Thank you for those still standing beside me." No one stood. No one cared. No one posted "You got this" under that image. She was alone. And still, I hadn't said a single word to her publicly. That was the part that confused people. She kept expecting me to fire back, to issue a press release, to clap back with legal threats or viral takedowns. But I had already won. Not because she was destroyed. Because I was untouched. Because I never needed to raise my voice to make my point. The silence spoke louder than she ever did. 1 week later, Eli sent me one last clip. A video she had recorded months ago, never posted. She was sitting in our bedroom talking to her phone in that influencer tone. "You know what, Sips hard?" she said, "pretending your marriage is perfect when deep down you feel smarter than the man you married." I didn't post it. Didn't just need to. Because by then, the world already knew. And I had already let her drown in her own voice. And still, "Boss," I hadn't said a single word to her. I didn't think I'd come back. Not to that house, not to that street, and certainly not to that spot. But I did. Exactly 1 week after I left, I returned. Not for closure. Not to see her, just for the books I left behind. The only things that were truly mine. I parked a little down the street. Same silver Toyota, same crack in the windshield I never fixed. As I stepped out, the wind hit me sharp across the face, like it knew where I was, like it remembered. I walked slowly, each step pressing into memories I thought I had already buried. But memory doesn't rot, it waits. And there she was. Vanessa. Same red coat. Different eyes. She was standing in the exact same spot where she once left me, wet and humiliated, while she drove off pretending I didn't matter. Now the suitcase was in her hand. Now the tears were in her eyes. How quickly the weather changes when you're on the other side of the storm. I paused, my body freezing even as my heart stayed silent. I thought I'd feel rage, fire, even pity. But all I felt was distance. And that scared me, because distance meant I was really gone. She took a hesitant step toward me. "Thomas," she said, voice trembling like the edge of an old cassette tape. I didn't respond, just stood there, letting her words vanish into the cold air like smoke. She tried again. "Please, I didn't mean to hurt you." That line. That useless, gutless line. I looked at her, really looked. The desperation in her eyes wasn't new. She had worn that look before when she wanted something, a favor, a second chance. A lie. But this time, I saw something else. She was scared. Not scared of me. Scared of losing the comfort I used to provide. Scared of facing a world where I no longer stood between her and consequences. "Can we talk?" she whispered. Her hand gripped the suitcase tighter. Her knuckles turned white. She hadn't planned this well. The suitcase wasn't zipped fully. A shirt was spilling out like a secret she couldn't contain. "I know I went too far," she said. "But I didn't know what else to do. I felt trapped. Trapped. The same word she used when she cheated. When she spent our savings. When she took my name and bent it into shapes it was never meant to carry. Trapped. That's what she called marriage. That's what she called me." I took a slow breath, stepped past her, and walked to the front door. No keys. But I didn't need them. I knew the window still stuck if you pressed it from the corner. I climbed in like I had done 100 times before when she forgot her keys. Funny, I was always breaking into my own house. The books were still on the shelf. The same dusty row. Old pages. Heavier now. I gathered them into the bag I brought. Nothing else. No photos. No notes. No trace of her. Just knowledge. Just the parts of me she never understood. As I turned to leave, I saw the kitchen light was on. She had followed me in. She was standing by the counter, where she once made tea on winter mornings. Now her hands were empty. "I don't have anywhere to go," she said. I nodded. Not because I cared, but because I had nothing to offer. "I tried calling my sister," she continued. "She said at Sep's time I faced the consequences of my choices. Finally, someone else said it. And now you're leaving me too," she said. There was a tremble in her voice that almost broke through. Almost. I could have said so many things. "Yes. You earned it. What did you expect? You left me first. I just followed your example. But I said none of it. Because silence sometimes screams louder than truth. I walked past her, opened the front door. The cold air met me again, almost like an old friend. She followed behind. "Please," she said. Again. "Can we start over?" I turned, just for a second. Her eyes were swollen. Her lips cracked. She wasn't the woman I married. But then again, maybe she never was. "Do you remember the rain?" I asked. She blinked, confused. "The day you left me outside, locked the door, watched me through the window while I stood there, soaked, humiliated, like a dog who forgot his way home." Her lips parted. No words came. That was the day I realized. I said, "I didn't lose you that day. I found myself." I stepped off the porch, the gravel crunching under my shoes. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said again. "I just wanted control," I said. "You had it." She stepped forward. I said, "I'm sorry." I opened my car door. She walked closer, now crying. "Please, just don't leave like this." I rolled down the window, looked her dead in the eye. "You taught me a lesson," I said quietly. "I just made sure you never forget it." And then I drove off. I didn't look back. Not once. Because the past doesn't deserve a rearview mirror. Because closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's such a silence. A long, cold silence on a winter morning where you choose peace over pain. I saw her fading in the mirror. Red coat, suitcase, a woman who used to be my home. But homes that burn don't rebuild themselves. They stay ashes. That was the last time I ever saw her. And strangely, it didn't hurt. I didn't smile when it ended. I didn't cry either. I just sat there, staring at the wall. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It wasn't loud either. It just existed. Like me. You know, people talk a lot about revenge. How it burns you. How it changes you. But they never talk about what's left when the fire goes out. I wasn't proud of what I'd done. But I wasn't ashamed either. That surprised me. There was no music playing in the background. No poetic line in my head. Just me. Breathing. Alone. And finally, free. But that freedom didn't taste sweet. It tasted clean. Like cold water on an empty stomach. I walked to the window. Opened it. Let the wind hit my face. The world outside didn't know what had happened, and it didn't care. I thought of her. Vanessa. How she used to laugh at my dumb jokes. How she used to fall asleep on my shoulder in the car. How she looked the day she walked away. But I didn't feel pain anymore. Just, she was a storm. I was the house that survived. I never replied to her last message. It was 3 lines. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought you wait." That was a week ago. She hadn't sent another one since. And I hadn't checked if she was okay. That was new for me. For most of my life I ran after love like it was oxygen. I begged to be chosen, to be held, to be worth it. But now, I finally realized I was never meant to be someone's option. I was always the entire damn path. I just forgot that. People think revenge is about hurting the other person. It's not. It's about reminding yourself you weren't crazy. You weren't weak. You were just loyal to the wrong timeline. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. A flood of emails, comments, messages. Strangers. Real people writing things like, "I felt every word. My daughter did the same. Thank you. I thought I was alone." And just like that, I didn't feel alone anymore. I had spent years trying to prove I was lovable, when all I needed was to be respected. Respect doesn't come from tears. It comes from boundaries. It comes from silence. It comes from the moment you stop explaining your worth and just walk away. Vanessa never expected me to leave. She expected lectures, long emotional breakdowns. But not this. Not cold silence. Not that final drive where I didn't stop. And not that window that never opened again. I used to believe that closure came from answers. from apologies, from hugs in the rain. But now, closure came from me. From waking up without checking her status, from drinking tea without replaying old arguments, from telling my story and finally letting it go. Do I miss her? Sometimes, mostly at night, when the house is too quiet, when the light hits the chair where she used to sit, but I don't regret anything. Not one decision. Not one silence. Not even the goodbye I never said. Because peace isn't loud. It's not fireworks or violins or Instagram quotes. It sets the absence of ache. And for the first time, I feel nothing, where pain used to live. I don't hate her. I don't love her either. I just hope she remembers the version of me that would have died for her, and realizes she buried that man with her betrayal. Because the man I am now, he doesn't beg. He doesn't chase. He just builds, slowly, quietly, a life that feels like home. Alone, maybe, but whole. I looked at my reflection in the window. Gray hair, tired eyes, a little older than I feel. But real. Still here. Still standing. And somehow, still soft enough to forgive. I don't just want revenge stories to inspire hate. I want them to remind people that healing isn't loud. It sets not TikTok reels and gym selfies. It sets deleting a number and not saving a backup. It sets unfollowing without announcing it. It sets sitting in the silence and surviving it. I never thought I'd be the kind of man who told his story online. But this wasn't just my story. It was hers. And his. And yours. And everyone who ever gave their all and got discarded like trash. You stirred not trash. You stir not invisible. You're just stronger than they were comfortable with. And that's why they left. Because people don't abandon the weak. They abandon the mirror. I had nothing to prove anymore. No argument to win. No justice to demand. I had something better. Peace. Not the kind you post online. The kind that lets you sleep, finally. I don't know if this chapter will go viral. I don't care. Because the real victory isn't views. It sets dignity. And I reclaimed mine. The moment I chose silence over drama. If you're watching this and your heart feels cracked, I want you to know something. Don't fight to be loved. Fight to be respected. Even if it means walking alone. Even if it means deleting the number and never looking back. Even if it means crying in silence for months. Because on the other side of that pain is power. Real power. The kind that can be taken. The kind that doesn't need revenge to feel strong. It just needs truth. And mine is simple. No, I'm not happy. But I set them free. And that's enough. If you felt something from this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories like this. And in the comments, tell me what part hit you the most. To hear the next story, just click on the box to the left. Thank you for listening.